Does Gerard Butler make plane fly high, or does it crash and burn? Let's find out now. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Plane, which is coming to theaters on January 13th, 2023. It is a new Gerard Butler and Mike Colter action film that has possibly the most generic name of any movie, but you know what? It's at least descriptive. You know it involves a plane. The movie's called Plane. That being said, my hot take, and this is very surprising to me as well, I actually think you should watch it. Look, it's not a good film, but it is a thoroughly entertaining popcorn flick. It's like essentially a summer movie that came out at the start of 2023. It has some rough edges, but overall it is very entertaining. The action is well done, and it is just a fun movie to see, especially in theaters, especially if you've got a big group. You'll enjoy it. Again, it's not a great movie, but it is very, very fun. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't want to know what happens in this film, I would turn it off then, but I will give you clear warning when I get into spoilers. Before that, there'll be a little tiny bit of discussion about the plot and then the things I like, so you don't have to worry too much about that. So Plane starts off very poorly because it just starts with a plain black background with just the white text plain at the very start. That's how the movie opens, which was not a good sign for me. I was very, very scared when I saw that. But thankfully, the film gets better after that. That's kind of a low point of the movie. Everything else after that is pretty fun. So in Plane, you have Gerard Butler playing Captain Brodie Torrance, who is a pilot for this made-up, kind of generic, possibly United-ish type airline. I think it's called like Transview or Transport. It's Trans something. I think it's Transview. In any event, he's flying from Singapore to Japan and then to Hawaii to go be with his daughter. He flies out of Singapore. His daughter lives in California. They're going to be in Hawaii for the New Year's. It's a fun reunion. It's a great idea. What could go wrong? Well, something does go wrong. Now, when they take off, the plane it's a very light plane. There's only 14 passengers because it's a New Year's Day flight, New Year's Eve flight. And one of them is this fugitive who's being transported back. This fugitive Gaspar, who was committed murder years ago and is now being extradited to face justice. So you got the small crew, you've got this plane taking off late at night, and stuff starts to go wrong that then causes the plane to have to take some emergency maneuvers. And what happens after that is a fun, surprising, entertaining, and sometimes very, very tense ordeal. So things I liked about this movie. The first, I just mentioned it. I love the tension. This film had some very, very tense moments. You've got the plane taking off. You've got issues that happen with the plane. You've got things that happen because of the issues that the plane have. And there are a lot of just very, very tense moments. It's not like edge of your seat, but it is well done. It'll make you kind of like hold your breath and wonder what happens next. And for an action film, that's really good to have this kind of like mix of tense moments and action. Now, the second thing I love, that's kind of fits right in, is the action, especially the combat. There is a nice mix of combat in this film. Surprise, there is combat. There's some hand-to-hand combat. There is some weapons combat. There is some in between, and there's a nice variety. The hand-to-hand combat is pretty visceral. It's pretty well done. It doesn't look too choreographed, obviously choreographed, but it looks pretty well done. It's entertaining at least. And the weapons combat has a nice variety to it. There's a nice mix of weapons and different things that happen. So overall, look, it's essentially a summer action flick being released in January. The action is very, very good. So good thing there. And the last thing I liked is the humor. It's not like an overtly funny movie, but there's a lot of very like dry dad kind of humor. Gerard Butler plays this kind of like wise cracking captain, and he has some really terrible but funny lines. The film also has some really nice kind of funny sarcastic moments to it. Like I said, it's not like a super funny movie, but it's kind of what you expect with a summer movie. You've got some pretty funny moments, some sarcasm, some general humor as the situation unfolds to kind of break up some of the tension in the film. So overall, it's got all the components you need for a good popcorn action flick. So things I didn't like in this film, they're both very minor. The first, there's some pretty bad CG. It's not terrible, but it is quite noticeable, especially when the plane is having issues and it starts to like veer and pitch and do all the things that planes do. It is very clearly CG, and it is not the best. Like it's fine. It's good enough for a movie, but it is pretty noticeable. But thankfully, there's not a ton of it, and there's not a lot of overall CG in the movie. But just when you see it, it is pretty noticeable. And the second thing I didn't love, it kind of, you know, it contrasts with the humor. Some of the dialogue is not very good. Look, it's essentially like summer movie dialogue, so it's just not the most well-written film, but it gets the job done. But there is some pretty poor delivery and some poor dialogue in this movie. Now, look, like I said, there's plenty of humorous moments, and there's plenty of people that do a very good job. There's just some rough edges in this film. So that being said, look, I think it's a very entertaining movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I left with a smile. I was much happier than I thought. Look, I go into movies not knowing what's going to happen, so I thought this was going to be kind of like an Air Force One type of situation. It is much bigger than that. It is much kind of more involved than that. And overall, I just had a blast. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the ending right now. So if you don't want to know what happens in the film, I would turn this off because there will be spoilers. But if you want to hear more about the film, maybe you've seen it, you want to hear some additional thoughts, let's keep going. So, like I said, the plane, when it takes off, it has some issues. It's essentially flying into a storm. Captain Brodie doesn't want to fly into the storm. He says, hey, we can just go around. But the big corporation is like, well, we can just fly higher. We don't want to spend the fuel to fly around the storm. We can get through it. Spoilers, they don't get through it. The plane gets hit by lightning and all their avionics go, which is surprising because I imagine there's probably some backups on any sort of modern plane. But like I said, it's a summer action movie. Just enjoy it. So they have to essentially land the plane blind, and they're over the ocean. They don't know what's going to happen. And then they see this land kind of off to the side, and they go to it. Miraculously, the plane lands. There's only 2 casualties. There were 2 people that got killed during some of the turbulence when they unbuckled to try to grab stuff. One tried to grab his phone, and the other person was trying to help him out. They both got killed. But they land on this island. No one knows where they are. They have no communications, but they're alive. Unfortunately, they land on this kind of separatist island outside the Philippines. And essentially it is a rebel kind of pirate island. So they landed in possibly the worst situation and no one knows they're there. And also apparently this plane doesn't have any sort of other phone. They don't get cell service and there's no like satellite phone or anything else to help them communicate. Hey, you know what? It's fine. It's a summer movie. What happens next is, Captain Brodie realizes that this is kind of a scary island. His co-pilot Dele lets him know like this is not a good place to be, and so he takes the prisoner with him, and they go scout out to try to find a way to communicate. They find like they saw a building on their landing, and they're gonna go see if there's a phone in there. Now, Captain Brodie is a very trusting person. He is not the best kind of manager of the prisoner. He unhandcuffs him, and then he's like walking with him, but Captain Brodie's walking in front of the prisoner, so the prisoner can do whatever he wants. Gaspar, could run off, and Captain Brodie wouldn't know. And wouldn't you know it, that's what happens while they're talking. Gaspar just kind of like melts in the jungle, and Brodie's on his own. And so Brodie makes it to the building. He finds a phone. He like somehow wires it, and then they apparently have phone service, and he's able to make a call. Again, very strange. They don't have cell service, but they have landline. Whatever, it's fine. So he makes a call, lets some people know where they are, but then he gets attacked, and oh my gosh, there is a visceral hand-to-hand combat scene where Brodie and this random pirate, I guess, for lack of a better word, are fighting. They kind of fight around, and Brodie ends up winning in a pretty brutal MMA style fight. But then he hears a gunshot and sees Gaspar with 2 guns and clearly having the advantage. But thankfully, Gaspar is a prisoner with a heart of gold, a heart-ish of gold. He says, if I'm not going to hurt you, Captain, we got to get going. This is a dangerous place. He gives him one of the guns. And they scoot back to the plane. But unfortunately, they are too late. All the other passengers get captured, and 2 of them die during this whole capture scene. One tries to run away. She gets shot. And then her husband is making a scene, and he gets shot as well. The rest of the passengers gets taken hostage and taken to this like pirate base city thing. It's not a good situation, But thankfully, corporate has it. And there's actually a nice kind of contrast here. There's like essentially a boardroom where they call in like a fixer who can get things done during crises, and he starts to kind of figure out what happened, and he tries to get everyone saved. You know, skirting some of the laws, just trying to make things happen. And it's a nice contrast between like the survival of the captain and the crew, and then this like corporate boardroom scene where they're trying to figure out like, what do we do in this scenario? Like, how do we message this, that kind of stuff. But in any event, corporate calls in this group of mercenaries to try to rescue these passengers because they know that they crashed on this dangerous island. They were able to locate it through like satellites or something. Anyways, Brodie and Gaspare realize that they also have to help the passengers. Once they kind of get taken hostage, their lives are in jeopardy. They're apparently going to be transported off on these boats to somewhere else to, I guess, be ransomed off or sold. Who knows what happens? And then this movie becomes very much like a video game. Like, it was actually really fun to see the two of them because they have to like sneak into this base. They don't really know what's going to happen, and they have to silently take out guards, two at a time, essentially. Like, it is very much like any of your co-op video games where you have to like do a sync strike or something like that. They have to sneak up to the guards and then both take them out at the same time, make sure no one makes a sound. It is entertaining. It is very tense. It's good to watch. So eventually they're able to free the prisoners and get them onto a bus to try to leave. But unfortunately, there are guards blocking the road, and they haven't seen the prisoners yet. But as soon as the bus starts up, they know that something's going to happen. So Brodie, the selfless man he is, decides, you know what, I'm going to give myself up. I'm going to try to distract them, and then you can get out. He does that. He draws a crowd. The boss comes out and like interrogates him. They're about to take him out, but then boom, the mercenaries come in, wreck shop, are able to get the prisoners out. They're able to save Captain Brodie. Everything seems fine, right? Not really. Unfortunately, there's no rescue happening because this is, again, like essentially a separatist nation. There's really no one who wants to kind of take this on. And so they have to kind of figure out how to get everyone out of here with essentially nothing. But somehow the co-pilot was able to get some power back onto the plane, get some of the basic functions back. So they come up with this plan of, we're going to take off in the plane, get off of this island, and then fly wherever we can with like one engine, essentially half of a plane. But you know what? It's fine. It'll work out. So they have a last stand. The mercenaries and Gaspare, the prisoner, set up to defend the plane. Everyone gets on. They somehow start the plane up. They somehow get it moving. They hold off everyone. All the mercenaries get on. But before all this happened, Gaspare basically told the captain. They kind of become friends. They trusted each other because they'd saved the prisoners together. They kind of like had an understanding. Gaspar's like, I can't come with you, because he knows that the plane's going to go to civilization. And if that happens, he's going to get extradited and he's going to be tried for the crime he committed. So Brodie says, good luck. And Gaspare says, you too, my capitan, which was a fun little scene. They kind of like, had developed a quick friendship in this hectic situation. So as the plane is about to take off, all the mercenaries jump on. They're calling for Gaspare, and Gaspare essentially grabs the hostage money that the mercenaries sent as like a contingency plan and disappears into the woods. And so everyone knows, he's going to make it on his own. And the plane starts to take off. But there's still one more bad guy left. The big boss and his crony are driving in a Jeep. They try to shoot the plane. They can't take it out, but the crony has an RPG. And so they drive ahead of the plane. They park it, and the crony's about to shoot the RPG. And when he shoots it, boom, he gets shot in the face. The RPG veers off and misses the plane. Gaspare came to the rescue. He saved him. But the big boss is still there. He's got the RPG. He's determined not to let them get out. He gets the RPG up, ready to go. The plane is barreling towards him. It's essentially a game of chicken. Who's going to win? And of course, it's Gerard Butler. He pulls up at the last minute. The plane takes off, and the landing gear just kind of like smacks into the boss, flipping the Jeep, killing the boss, and the plane takes off. It is essentially held together by duct tape. They have, essentially one engine. They couldn't close the doors. They couldn't pressurize the cabin. The cabin's depressurized. They can't rise up because essentially the plane is not pressurized. They can't really do much, and they're running low on fuel. So they have to find a place very, very quickly. Thankfully, there is another island 50 miles away. Hey, that's very convenient. So they steer towards that island. They're not sure if they're going to make it as they're flying. Like one of the flaps flies off one of the planes. They lose one of the engines. It is very, very rough flying. But Gerard Butler, because he's apparently an amazing pilot who can land on a random island, is able to make the plane barely land on this island, barely able to stop. They stop just past the runway, but before crashing into anything, and everyone's saved. Gerard Butler has a really funny, like I said, the humor is really funny. He goes up to the crew after they land, after they're exhausted. He said, well, hopefully this layover is better than the last one. Again, just really, dad humor kind of thing that I enjoyed. But he lands, everyone gets off safely. At least everyone who's left gets off safely. He calls a daughter, says, sorry, I'm gonna be a little late. And then kind of the movie fades off, and that's Plane. Again, it is a fun movie. It is not a great movie, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's just a really good kind of popcorn flick. So if you go see it, you will not be disappointed. So that is Plane. It comes to theaters on January 13th, 2023. And thanks so much for watching. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.